We're being told today that alcohol is a more dangerous drug than heroin or crack cocaine, not of course to an individual user, but to society generally. The message comes from Professor David Nutt, the former chair of the Advisory Council on the Misuse of Drugs, who with colleagues on the Independent Scientific Committee on Drugs has produced a very serious, scientifically argued attack on current drugs legislation, or at least the way we view it. Professor Nutt is here in the studio, and on the line from Oxford is the Mail on Sunday columnist Peter Hitchens. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Professor Nutt, what's the thrust of you? Because there's a lot of detail here, and you've weighted a lot of evidence using criteria, but what in a nutshell is the summary of what you are suggesting?
So what we have done is we have taken the government's recently published 16 parameters of harms, of all the harms a drug can do, 9 to the individual, 7 to society. We've rated 20 drugs across those, and it turns out that alcohol is the most harmful drug to society, whereas crack, heroin, crystal meth, and then alcohol are the most harmful drugs to the individual. So we've put that into the public debate. We're having a major conference today in London with experts from other countries and the European Commission to see if based on those understandings, we can develop a more rational policy to reduce the harms of drugs.
But you're not suggesting that it is as harmful to have a drink or several drinks as it is to take cocaine?
We are saying in terms of the UK population at present, alcohol is much more damaging than any other drug.
But not to an individual who...
And to the individuals, I said no. I mean, certainly, if you look at the scale to the individual, I would say alcohol is about the fourth most dangerous. But certainly, if alcohol was a new drug, was discovered today, alcohol would unquestionably be controlled in the same way as we control other drugs, because it's clearly a harmful drug. And we should not dismiss that. We should be quite clear that this is a drug which does a lot of damage.
Peter Hitchens?
Well, first of all, the report is barely written in recognisable English and seems to me to be a heap of pseudoscience in which, for instance, stomach ulcers, deforestation, the reputation of the community, mood disorders, and the littering of the streets with used syringes are all lumped together as factors. How anyone can produce an objective classification of the danger of a drug on the basis of this, I don't know.
Well, it's peer-reviewed and it's in the Lancet.
It's peer-reviewed by... You tell me what peer-reviewed means, but on this occasion I think it needs to be treated with a certain amount of suspicion. It doesn't look to me like objective science, but leave that aside. Of course alcohol does more damage in our society because it's legal. What are these people saying? The argument that is being pushed, not necessarily by Professor Nutt, I don't know what his agenda is, but there is a very powerful and very well-financed campaign at the moment to undermine the laws restricting the sale of many dangerous drugs. If heroin, if particularly cannabis, a especially nasty and dangerous drug because of the unpredictable way in which it can inflict permanent mental illness on some of its users, if these were legalized, or as these people now euphemistically say, decriminalized or regulated, then their harms would be far, far greater than those of alcohol. This is an argument, if you like, if you really think this about alcohol, for reintroducing a lot of the restrictions on it which we used to have and which we foolishly abandoned. It's certainly not an argument, though it will be used as such, for relaxing the laws against the other drugs. Alcohol is the only one, almost, I think mushrooms also feature in this silly chart, the only one of the drugs in this chart which is legal now, or significantly legal. And that's the difference between it and the others. If we had legal heroin, legal cannabis, legal crack cocaine, we would have colossal social and health damage.
Is that the implication, though, David Nutt, of your report and others like it, that actually you end up sending out a signal, if not actually legalizing, drugs that are incredibly dangerous? It's the wrong signal to send to people.
No, if you look at the reports, and I have to say, it's not pseudoscience. It's the best science we can have around drug harms, and if anyone can do any better, great. And
I should try again today, if that's the best you can do.
Well, hold on, Peter Hitchens.
but no one. Very few people, and certainly not myself, would support the idea of legalizing drugs and having them marketed the way that alcohol and tobacco are marketed, because unquestionably, that would lead to greater harms. But what we have to do is, the purpose of this stuff is to make sure that what we do in relation to drugs is based on evidence, because you could equally argue that criminalizing young people for smoking cannabis, and I completely disagree with your analysis of the harms of cannabis, is actually more dangerous to them and to their lives than decriminalising.
Well, how can you disagree with an analysis?
Peter
The
Hitchens,
harms of cannabis are increasingly being established by doctors who
Peter Hitchens,
we need
hold
to
on a
know
second.
who is this.
Can I just put this to you, Peter Hitchens? We have a war on drugs, don't we?
No, there is no such war.
Well, of course
no
there
such
is.
war has been fought. It's since the Wooden Report of 1968-69, of which none of you lot ever seem to have heard. There has been no serious war, for instance,
hold on a second.
on cannabis.
If you possess cocaine, you face, 7 years in prison. If you supply it, life in prison. If you possess alcohol, you're regarded as a good
The
fellow.
criminal justice system is not interested in prosecuting possession. It's only interested in trying to interdict supply. It's completely given up trying to prosecute possession of cannabis.
That is not true.
Most you can expect for prosecution of cannabis
last year, the last data we have
is a caution.
160,000 people were given criminal sanctions for possessing cannabis, and that doubled the numbers in the last 5 years.
What were those
own
sanctions?
Peter Hitchens, hold on a second. I don't want to just get bogged down on cannabis.
They were cautions at most.
David Nutt, what I'm not clear on, though, is if someone reads this report, if government reads it as you want them to, what action do you want them to take as a result of what you say is this scientific report?
They need to accept the fact that the Misuse of Drugs Act is way past its sell-by date. We need to completely review the way in which we deal with all drugs, not just illegal drugs, because that's an arbitrary and non-scientific decision.
Yeah.
We need to review the whole way in which society regulates, controls, reduces the harms of drugs.
So here
we need
get
to
the
redo
agenda.
that, and that needs to be a very serious, high-level debate.
So here we get the agenda to blur the line of distinction between the legal and the illegal drug.
Thank you
honestly,
both.
how irresponsible can you get?